Carissimi fratelli e sorelle, con profondo dolore devo annunciare la morte del nostro Santo Padre Francesco.
Pope Francis passed away at 88 today, the day after Easter, and he used his last day on this planet to order up a stern dressing down of J.D. Vance and MAGA on the White House's attitude toward migrants. It was an entirely fitting final set piece from one of the few world leaders who had the courage and political immunity to stand up to and criticize, often in blistering terms, as we'll see in this video, both presidencies of Donald Trump, explicitly calling his migration policies a disgrace and not Christian. And on that note, if you do consider yourself a MAGA Christian, you probably want to click off this video because you're not going to like what you're about to hear. But if instead you are, much like Pope Francis, a champion of peace, freedom, and compassion for all people, then by all means, welcome in, drop a like, subscribe, and stay a while, and let's get into it. Now, to anyone who might say, politicizing the Pope's death is the lowest form of low, I would first say, look at MAGA before you say that, okay? I have a video on this coming later. And then secondly, I would say, you clearly have no idea what this Pope stood for.
Well, in the sense that if you're looking for the polar opposite of Donald Trump in the modern world, it's a bit of an irony. It's the Pope in Rome. I mean, look, the Catholic Church wasn't always the greatest friend to democracy and human rights throughout its history, but especially in the last half century or so, the Church has emerged as such a vocal moral voice on behalf of human rights and democracy, and Pope Francis very much so. Remember, Christian, a month ago, we didn't think the Pope was going to survive. He was in the hospital in intensive care, double pneumonia, 88-year-old man. We were waking up every morning thinking we'd be reading obituaries. Everyone was talking about his legacy as Pope, his openness, to gays and lesbians, his elevating women in the church, all of these remarkable things, his openness to immigrants and welcoming refugees. These are all important things. But what I don't think was getting enough play was what an important champion of what he calls a better kind of politics, and his moral voice against nationalist populism, the kind of Trumpism that's going rampant around the globe, and his championing democracy, open debate, scientific research. He's on climate change. He's been The Guardian called him the moral voice of the world.
Right. The Pope's entire legacy was overtly political, overtly liberal, and pro-democracy. And while the Catholic Church itself is ironically no saint, right, in terms of politics, this Pope was very political. And his message was completely antithetical to everything Donald Trump and J.D. Vance stood for. And I'll show you the clip of their exchange in just a second, but here is Vance's parting message. He said, "I just learned of the passing of Pope Francis. My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. I was happy to see him yesterday, though he was obviously very ill, but I'll always remember him for the below homily he gave in the very early days of COVID. It was really quite beautiful. May God rest his soul." And I certainly would not even suggest that Vance offed the Pope, but people in the comments sure did. I know what you did. What did you do, bro? Can you meet with Putin next? This you with the picture of him as the Grim Reaper. That is really, really terrible, but also kind of hilarious. But I couldn't help but admire this post here that says, "It's heartbreaking that Pope Francis in his final days poured his waning strength into reaching out to you, JD, desperately trying to save your soul from the toxic influence of a false prophet and conman, Donald Trump. How tragic that he wasted those precious moments on a performative Christian who craved a photo op while privately scorning the Pope's passing, likely because Francis dared to challenge you to treat migrants with basic human dignity and reject the demonic grip of Trump's lies. As the world mourns a true servant of God in 2025, your betrayal of Christ's teaching stings even deeper, aligning with the divisive rhetoric still poisoning our nation's discourse." Wow. What a takedown. Here's that clip of Vance meeting with the Pope, and then we'll talk about what the Pope said to Vance after this.
Hello. So good to see you.
While that is what was going on in front of the cameras, behind the scene things were a little different. The Holy See spoke in frank terms after that meeting, saying there had been an exchange of opinions on the international situation, especially regarding countries affected by war, political tensions, and difficult humanitarian situations, with particular attention to migrants, refugees, and prisoners. It called for serene collaboration between the White House and the Catholic Church in the United States. But a statement from Vance's office notably did not include migration among the topics of conversation, saying the two discussed Trump's commitment to, quote, restoring world peace, and that's it. As we saw earlier in Vance's post reacting to Francis's death, Vance shared his condolences with the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him, but stopped short of expressing a personal sense of loss. And look, frankly, I wouldn't want to be around much longer if I had to spend my Easter with J.D. Vance, but I do think it's really important here that this was his final act, on Easter. This person put it very fittingly. As a fitting last act, Pope Francis's last speech was a total rejection of the authoritarian fascism of Trump and MAGA. He also scolded J.D. Vance over the fascist regime's treatment of the marginalized and the migrants. And if you just go on any social media, on Twitter right now, I mean, there is so much about Pope Francis and his messages of freedom and compassion for migrants. And it just feels really fitting to see him go in this way, humiliating J.D. Vance, absolutely smashing down the terrible, terrible anti-Christian, anti-moral values and policies of Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and their regime, not their administration. So God rest his soul. I am personally not a very religious person, but respect where respect is due. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it cathartic. And I hope that anyone who is mourning today, I wish you all the best. It is a sad loss to the world, but it is a fitting ending, I would say. And on that, I think that's where we'll end this. If you enjoyed the video, please consider dropping a like and joining our resistance here at Really American so we can continue the legacy, the powerful policies, and the hopes and dreams of the late Pope Francis. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse. I'll see you in the next one.